right, hide the controls. We are here. Well, it's 8 o'clock, so let's get started. Today's going to be another short lecture. Hey. Good morning. How's it going? Good. Good to see you. I'm actually going to stand close to the podium because there's been sound problems with the recorded lectures. So, be over here. Today we're going to talk about the history of GIS because this chapter really just went over vectors and rasters, which explains polygons for vectors and rasters are a grid of squares. It took a whole chapter to explain that. They didn't have to. So we had talked last week about combining different weeks. If I combined chapters 3 and 4, then chapter 5 could be the makeup week or something, or 4 and 5. We'll see for next spring. So I was just saying we're going to go over the history of GIS today, and I'm talking close to the computer because I realize there's a sound issue on the recorded lectures. So hopefully being closer will help with that. I've also got a couple of students on here live virtually. If you guys have any questions, you can interrupt me because I can't really see the chat. Okay, cool. So that's how I think I'm going to do it for the rest of the semester. Live lectures, virtual live lectures, plus recorded, just in case you miss it. And I think that should cover all different types of learning styles, plus other materials, just a review of the reading. So if you like to learn by reading things, easy peasy. I'm more of a visual learner, so I like seeing the slides. Although I have to say, I usually watch my professor's recorded lectures with the transcript going on the side, because like subtitles, that's my thing. I'll remember everything if I have a subtitle. And I wonder if I can get this one to do it. Nope. Fortunately, Zoom automatically transcripts things. This computer will not do captions. I don't know if, I do know why it is. So I'm running all of our computer runs through like a virtual machine environment, which is not the local hard drive, but the microphone for the recording has to go through the local hard drive and the local computer, so it doesn't like cross-populate, which is kind of silly. But anyways, so let's talk about the history. We're going to go all the way back to 1850 and the first example of spatial analysis. Does anybody remember what that is? The first example of spatial analysis, 1854. Does the name John Snow ring any bells? No, that's totally fine. It's possible that the book totally just like breezed over it. However, if you take any other GIS courses, they're going to talk about this map all the time. This is actually a recreation of a map from 1854. So cholera, it was huge. This map changed the world. So Dr. John Snow was the first person to say that maybe malaria isn't airborne. They thought that it was airborne. So think about today, how we know a little bit about how the coronavirus spreads because it's similar to other flu-like viruses. We don't know details. Cholera back then, they didn't even know what germs were. They didn't have the word germs. They didn't realize it was bacteria. Microscopes were like this new thing. So germs weren't understood, and it was a very serious outbreak of cholera. So it was a total mystery. And Dr. John Snow wanted to solve the mystery. So he mapped the infection cases. So you can see the bigger the circle is, the more infections there are. And you notice, you start to notice that a lot of the infections are kind of around this well. Now there's big outbreaks there. It was like kind of a mystery. He went and he talked to people. Because this well had better water than these ones, the yellow circles, those people were going to the center well for their water. So it turns out there was a cesspool bordering that, which is like a pit of poo. It was well known for the best water in all of London, but 10% of the neighborhood died in 7 days. And they found out that it was this cesspool that had the malaria bacteria multiplying in it, and it was getting into the water source in that specific well. And he convinced the authorities that it was the water supply. It took many, many years before other scientists believed that it was the water, but they did end up shutting down that well, and the cases went down. Did I say malaria? Cholera. I think I might have said malaria. That's a mosquito-borne illness. This was cholera, which you get like E. coli from fecal samples. And I lost my notes. Show me the speaker notes. Okay, cool. So let's back up even further to the first example of maps. This map is over 2,500 years old. It was obviously 1400 BC. It shows a plot of land in a river valley between two hills. The inscriptions record the owner of the 12-hectare parcel as a person named Azula. So this is the plot of land right here. I think that's probably a road. And it's not exactly sure what hills are, but this is one of the first examples that we found of a map. I could go into how clay tablets are like the only surviving type of writing from that day. A lot of the paper goods have deteriorated or caught on fire, or yeah. So this is like a only reliable source of writing we have from back then. So the next really good example we have is a map of the waters off of Portugal. Specifically, like this little guy down here at the bottom. Real scary. So this is a map from 1584, and it's got a lot of different geographic information for mariners. So it has all the different ports, which are along the coastline. It has sailing directions. You can see the compass rose down here. And it was in the first nautical atlas. It was the first of its kind, and it was an immediate commercial success. Because it made a lot of money, they reproduced it a lot. We have lots of examples of it. So modern sailors can still appreciate the value of this information, as well as it's pretty. That's not a bad map for 1500s. There is a lot of detail, yes. And this isn't the only map that was in that atlas. This just happens to be one of the ones I like. You can see the different rivers in Portugal. Some evidence of farming. Now we go into a video. I usually show videos. Let's see if we can get the speakers to work. Volume up, volume up. This volume is like redlined. is about the start of computer use in GIS. Let's turn this down.
We spend millions of dollars to explore the surface of the moon. Minerals. What's the depth and extent of ore bodies? How much water is there? What's the topography? Where are the best transportation routes? How much will they cost per mile? Where are the best landing sites? We have spent millions of dollars to explore the surface of the moon. But what do we really know about the Earth and its resources? Where are those resources? How great are they? We're in a race against time. 1 billion people are hungry. All their time is used to find food. They are losing a race. The world is losing their potential contribution. How can productivity be increased? What resources can be developed? How fast? And at what cost? How should the benefits be distributed? We need information. Data on resources has been piling up for years, even in the newest countries. The problem is how to store it, measure it, and analyze it. Just to look at it using conventional methods would take years and years. To make decisions, we need facts. But we have facts. We have all seen soil maps and census figures. So what's the problem? The problem is not making the surveys. It is trying to read and summarize the results of the surveys. The amount of work involved in handling this data is enormous. Even the simplest operations take hundreds of people. Raw data and statistics have to be cataloged, stored, summarized before the data can be used to make decisions. The process is painfully slow. It's bad enough when you're handling census data. It's even worse when you have to handle maps. And so much of our land information comes only in maps. Suppose an administrator wants to find out how much good farming land in his province is still undeveloped, and where. He has to compare the maps showing good farming areas with the ones showing present land use. But they are not at the same scale. First, one map must be remade as a transparent overlay at the exact scale of the other map. Checked, retouched, positioned. To measure the area where both factors overlap, he will probably use a dot grid, a method that hasn't changed since the days of ancient Egypt. What if he wants to consider other factors, such as the incomes of the people, crop yields in a certain soil, forestry, wildlife, recreation, climate, census data? To compare two factors over 100 square miles will take one man a whole working day. To compare only 6 basic factors for all of Canada would take 556 people 8 hours a day for 3 years. It would cost $8 million. But we don't have the staff, we don't have the time. More resource data comes in every year, every month, every day. Crop and forest assessment, soil surveys, forestry surveys, timber pest counts, wildlife surveys, sampling, analysis, and many others. Where have surveys been made? Where do new surveys need to be made? To make our decisions wisely, we will need every bit of this information, and even more.
Human beings alone can't handle this vast amount of information. But if we harness the computer and use it to extend our abilities, then we can. At the moment, the government is rather like a farmer who's just inherited his farm. He doesn't really know how big the farm is. He perhaps doesn't know much about the soil. He hasn't got too much idea about the climate, and he's not really sure whether there's usable water. And yet, he has to make decisions that will let him plant the right seed and grow enough food to support his family. And if you think that would be a problem on an ordinary-sized farm, think what it would be like with 1 million square miles. The County Land Inventory is trying to tackle this problem in 2 ways. Firstly, it's trying to gather together the basic information that we need to know about the country. Secondly, it's trying to find out some way of handling this information. We like to think that we've got a system that can accept the information, can store it, can analyze it, and present the results in a usable form. A system that can do this not in years, but in hours.
The computer can be an instant library, a bank of information. Information that is stored as numbers, on tape in this case. It can store statistics, and these statistics can be filed for immediate access at any time. However, so much of the information about land resources comes only in maps. How can we store them as numbers? But we've used a number system for centuries. Latitude and longitude. Any point on Earth can be identified by numbers, even boundaries, areas, or lines. And for any point on the Earth's surface, we can add other data, described by numbers. The location of road and railway bridges, landing fields, sources of power, industrial sites, and the capability of the land itself, land from forestry, soils for farming, pasture land, wildlife areas, land with recreation possibilities. All these factors can be stored and compared with other information about the land and the people who live on it. Map information is located, described, and fed, one factor at a time, into a drum scanner, which reads off the value, at this scale, for points every 100 feet across the country. These signals are stored on tape. The map has been turned into numbers. Just as the human eye looked down through the overlays to compare 2 factors, so the computer can compare 2 sets of numbers. 2 factors, or as many as necessary. Soils, climate, topography, wildlife, farm and forest capability, and even more important, it can compare all of these with statistics on human resources, census figures by subdivision, average income, family size, age, and information on human needs, employment, costs of development. The computer can look at all these figures, compares them, and puts out the analysis we have asked for, in statistics or in map form on any scale desired. This is the way we can store information for future use. Compare it, measure it, or print out the analysis in map form. This is the basic concept of the geographic information system. Here it is in actuality. The drum scanner is capable of converting into numbers up to 6,000 maps per year. The lines on the map are recorded with an accuracy of 1/10,000th of an inch and stored by an optical scanning device on magnetic tape.
Clearly, we don't use magnetic tape anymore. That's like a hard drive.
The scale of the map is not fixed. It can be reproduced on any scale at any time. $5.99, $600. Each of the map areas is given a number. And on a digitizer table, a coordinate. A key coordinate is recorded within each area.
Do you remember how you georeferenced? This is how they georeferenced before computer screens existed.
The coordinates are stored on punch cards. The information has been located geographically, and it is described on another set of punch cards. By collating the two card sets, the information and the key coordinates are merged together, so that each area now has its number and name stored inside the computer. This information can be changed or updated at any time. First, it is checked for errors by the computer. If we could visualize what the computer does electronically, we would see that it discovers omissions and misinformation introduced by human error. These errors are printed out. The necessary corrections are made either by changing the information on punch cards or by tracing the correct lines and loops with the digitizer. The corrected map information is fed onto the tape. This, then, is the storage system of the Canada Land Inventory. For the first time, we can use all of the information we've gathered over the years. Special maps can be made on request. Suppose an administrator wants to know how many viable farms his region can support. What areas should get assistance for agricultural development? He fills out a request using plain language. This is a normal request. The computer could handle many other factors as well. Farmland could be measured in relation to good roads, or freight rates, or profits over cost per acre.
All right, who's still with me? We'll watch the rest of it in a minute. Let's talk about how did computers improve GIS? Hands? Really? Easier to what? Yeah. That's not real. But
It kind of like compiled and stored this data.
a little bit of data or a lot of data,
A lot of it.
right? So more data and less space. So you saw that huge room with all the maps. It's like a warehouse full of bookcases that have paper maps. Imagine how many digital files you could store in a room that big. Yeah. What else?
It made it so like it was faster.
Faster, yes.
And all the questions will have to be written.
Sure, and less people equals less what?
Right.
Money, yep. Cheaper. No, I'm still trying to think of ways to get you guys to do my dissertation data analysis.
More
More accurate, yeah. Accuracy, yes. Cool. You hit all the points. I was looking for anything else.
I was gonna say it can like compare, well, analyze and compare the data. Or like
Yes. Better analysis. Slash automation. Did that get it?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good. Alright, let's finish this video. I don't know that I've ever watched it to the end because I usually get bored right about this part.
The request is translated into code, and the code into punch cards.
Trying to get really crazy, we can do it at double the speed. Look at how fast they're
Some
working.
requests can be formed. Computer refers to an existing file. Of statistics and maps. As I take a look at the file, he formed this analytical, more complex version. These are the vital files. What about people who live in other areas? Are there possibilities for recreation, wildlife, or forestry? Where should the government invest in building? What is the best land use in each area? What are human resources, education, income? The computer indicates the dates which all this information is stored. Now it will compare and analyze all factors at a speed that human hands can imagine.
Yep. Handle for 90s. Handle for early 2000s. No, you think we were more advanced by then? I'm gonna look. I don't know. The rest of this video is probably not important. Oh, whatever. Cancel. I'm still there. Let's see. Well, yeah, we go like this. Control new Roger Tomlinson. First computer. Created the first computerized geographic system in the 60s. We were all wrong. Well, it might have been made in the 80s or 90s, but they were talking about the 60s. Kooky pants. So let's go in here, hide floating meeting controls. All right, so that brings us up to the 60s. It really took off using technology with the advent of the computer. It made it faster, it made it more accurate, it made it cheaper. They were talking about that one analysis taking 3 with multiple people on the project. Now you can do a spatial analysis. If it's small enough in an hour, if it's countrywide, it might take a little bit more processing time on your computer, but in a day. You're doing the whole world. You're doing like paleoclimate data. So you're going back hundreds of thousands of years for the whole global Earth. You can still process that in a couple of days. So post-60s, the government of Canada made CGIS first true GIS. And then Harvard Lab for computer graphics opened in 1964, and then increased the visualization and the cartography in it. There was the U.S. Census. They came up with an encoding schema in 1967 to kind of standardize things across the board. The USGS, which is the Geologic Surface, came up with a retrieval and analysis system in the early 70s. The Swedish Land Data Bank came on board in the early 70s. So did one in the UK. There was also a joint information system. So you start to see things becoming more cohesive and collaborative in the 70s. Now this is like a wall of text. I'll just guide you through it. In the early 70s, there were satellites that began monitoring the surface and the atmosphere, and they started generating huge amount of data, which of course then snowballed into spurring more development. So in the late 70s to early 80s, there was a bunch of software development. There was GIS, there was Eridus, ArcInfo by Esri, GRASS. Oh, this is actually Eridus. So I have used all of these. I'm not sure if that one's still around. And they've also branched off to do different things. This one and this one are really good for remote sensing. ArcInfo by Esri has branched off into a bunch of different things. We use ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro in this class. They've also got a whole suite of software. And GRASS is really good for, I'm pretty sure, post-GIS. We also use QGIS, which is an open source GIS. There's more of a push right now towards open source platforms because it's free for people who want to use it. And anybody can develop software that kind of like puzzle pieces into the platform. QGIS is a big one. Gaia is an HDS system. Never used UDIG, but I imagine some other, what does UDIG do? Do you know? Is that a government or a construction thing? I think UDIG. What's the thing you have to call when you want to do construction in your front, like build a fence in your front yard? You have to call DigSafe. I wonder if that has some sort of a GIS basis. Yeah. Maybe. That sounds like it could be something that is, but DigSafe uses a GIS to mark all of water lines, sewer lines, underground electric if they're there, so that when you go to do construction, you don't accidentally puncture your sewer line and make a big mess. Cool. So what are your questions on the history of GIS?
So you said that like one of them you were searching overall. How do you just turn it off?
Well, sometimes the software, so you know how like an older computer will have software that will work on a newer computer?
Yeah.
Similarly,
Not like stuff.
Yeah, they stopped developing it, maybe another company bought it. A specific one, I don't know what happened. It could still be around. But it did say that it was a university one, right? Let's see, go back one. Yeah, University of Wisconsin. So if the person who was developing it graduated, died, retired, whatever, and nobody else wanted to continue it, then it just sits on a server somewhere until it accidentally gets deleted. Yeah. What are your other questions? Do you have questions about the chapter? Vectors, rasters? Okay, cool. So we have plenty of time left. Let's go over the chapter together. People watching at home, do you have any questions? Week 5 was the reading that we're gonna talk about. Week 5. Cool. Right, so we've talked a lot about GIS so far. A lot of the things they mention in this paragraph are actually spatial analysis. Think about what kind of problems you want to solve using GIS. Let's see. Oh, this is the online GIS utility for Idaho. If you go on Blackboard, I actually have that as the first link in week 6. Let's all go on Blackboard and we'll do this warm-up activity. Check how or what kind of data they have stored in like a local GIS. Now, I certainly have never been on the site before, but I do know from looking at my local town's tax records that we can pretty much find anything. So let's see. Let's say we want to find a piece of land owned by a post office. Oh, yeah, we can look for the post office. So we wanted to do that. We would need to know the owner's name. Maybe it's the USPS. Nope. Yeah, you stumped me. We could do a search up here though, not just in the layers, but a general search, post office. There we go. That's a sewer permit for the post office right there. Does that look like the post office to you? That's like definitely a residential neighborhood. It's probably a house. So we searched post office, and it did not give us what we were looking for. Maybe there used to be a post office there, sure. What if we looked up postal service? No such luck. Property locator. Let's search by owner. Let's search for any houses owned by the Smiths. There are a lot of them. So hilariously, if you ever want to find out where someone lives and be a crazy stalker, if you know their town, you can go to the GIS and look up their last name and find out where their house is, what their house is worth. Yeah. If you click it, you can see all sorts of assessment records. So they got reappraised in 2011, and the land got assessed at $22,000. With the house, it's about $100,000. Property values in Idaho in 2011 were not very high. You can also see any sort of building permits. There were none pulled on that pool. And sanitary records. Funny. Possibly that municipality doesn't require permits for pools. But all of this information is stored in a database. Who can tell me which things on here are, hold on, I was going to say points, lines, and polygons, but all I'm seeing are polygons. Yep, these are all just polygons. All right. Who can give me an example, now that I zoomed way far out, of a point on this map? Who can give me an example of a point on this map? So the vectors have 3 different types: points, lines, and polygons. What on here is a point? Yeah, the point right in the middle right there. There's actually 2 of them. There's Locust Grove and there's Greenford. So they put points in there as kind of like a placeholder to put a town name or maybe like a village name. I'm unsure. Good. How about a line? Roads, yes, roads. Yep, the roads are lines. When you zoom in really far, they're actually polygons. That's okay. At this zoom level, they're lines. What else? What other lines do we have? The streets. So what would that be? Right, would that be a point line or a polygon? It's going to be a polygon because it's like a enclosed. Yep. So let's look back to lines. What else? What are all of these polygons called, like, referred to usually? Property. Yep. Property boundaries, plot maps, things like that. Good. Cool.
So other types of lines in this map.
There are rivers, yes. These rivers are all lines. Yeah, good job. Good job. Are there other polygons? What are they? Ponds and lakes, yes. You can see that you can have lines connecting polygons. You can even put information in there about flow rates and flow directions and things like that too. Cool. How about what part of this is the raster image? Would it help if I zoomed in so you could here see the pixels? They're not getting square. Sometimes when you zoom way in, you see the squares. Anyways, so ooh, this is a really, really high resolution photo. Anyways, okay, so it is wicked close, yeah. So the raster is this background satellite light imagery. And if it allowed me to zoom in further, you'd be able to see those individual squares that make up this image. But this is as far as it lets me go in. Yep. That's it. Cool. Good. Yep. So, there are numerous online GIS resources. Yes. You can parcel ID or owner name. It actually tells you what to search for. It's some sort of a park. You can turn on zoning data. So, actually, let me go back to that. We will, oops. We will search for this. What is this? 29-042-0- Cool. So I guess if I use page 2, -042-0-002.00-0. All right, let's go put that in. This parcel ID 29-042-0-002.00-0, and I have a character in there. Let's see if it actually comes up. Woo! I typed it in right. All right. So you see, you have the park, and you can't see the whole thing because it is bigger than my screen right now. There it is. Cool. And it comes up, and it gives you the property data down at the bottom. And up here somewhere, I guess that's layers. Yep, you can look at the map layers. There's a whole bunch of things you can turn on. Survey data, agricultural data, hydrology. Wow. School district stormwater, zoning. Look at zoning. Aerial photo tiles. Imagery for all different years. That's cool. plus DEMs. Lots of different things you could see in this map. So the question is, what was the question? From the tabular information provided about the park's parcel of land, how large is it? And what's the value? Well, so if we double click on this, it should open, or it's not going to. Oh, here. We'll just scroll over. So how big is it? Those of you at home, if you unmute and talk, we can hear you too. Yep, about 71.5 acres. Cool. And how much is it worth? Honestly, I can probably, actually, I won't, I don't think it'll let me choose the, make it bigger. So it looks like the land is worth $1 million. Anything they put on the land, playgrounds, basketball courts, whatever's there, buildings maybe, that's another $1 million. So total market value, $2,223,160. Now remember how much that house is worth? Like $100,000. That park is super expensive. Holy moly. How much is that per acre? Oh, all right. $3,000 per acre. So you kind of can imagine how big this park is. It's a very big park. So let's look at the next question. From looking at the aerial photos and the zoning information, what type of lands are adjacent to the park boundaries? Commercial, residential, etc. So, we'll put this down there. This is the park. It would be awesome if we had some sort of a legend. Zoning districts. That like really does not help, huh? Does anybody know what any of these things mean? Because I don't. R is probably residential. MU is municipal. C is commercial. A is agricultural. I don't know what B is. So. So I have what layers do I have on? I've got municipal data. Let's get rid of that. We don't need adjusting. We don't need cadastral data. I don't really even need survey data. Leave that one on. All right. So this gray area is roads. You can just tell from the aerial photo. Answer it. What land use is around the park? What does it look like around that park? Park is here. Here. Can you tell what that is? Does that look familiar? Looking at aerial photos? What? Yeah, it's a neighborhood. Yeah, good job. That's, yep. Yeah. Did you say a school? A store. Let's check. Let's say. I totally think you're right. Give me the cadastral data again. There's a whole bunch of buildings and a parking lot. Hey, you see what it is? It's Target. So let's zoom in over there. Yep, you're right. So there's a bunch of little stores. There, that's a parking lot in the middle. Oops, look at that pretty park. There's a Target, there's a Kohl's. Right, yep, like a strip mall. Shops at Boardman Park Properties. Yep, a bunch of little shops. Let's see what this one is over here. Toys R Us. Well, that's not there anymore. It was a Toys R Us. Cool. So let's see how it's changed over the years. I don't know if that's one of the questions, but that's something I'm curious about. Let me turn off 2017. Let's go to 2018 and see what it looks like. Okay, not too much different. We added a couple more trails. Are there more houses? Yeah, they did. They added a lot more houses. Good catch. I wasn't even looking over there. Look at this baseball field over here. Watch it disappear. Right? This is 1998. This is 2017. We got rid of a baseball field. I know. They've done some studies to see like how many you're supposed to have based on your population. So they built more houses and took away a baseball field. What happens between 1998 and 2017? That would mean you don't need a baseball field as much. Say louder. Maybe. Right, it could have been a private landowner that just didn't want it anymore. But think about what kids did in 1998 versus what they do now. Technology, yes, I think that's probably the driver of that change. Yep. So if you zoom out a little bit and you do that, here, take off hydrology too. Let's see. Let's go back to 1998 and see if there was additional forest. All right, so I'm kind of looking at this area down here because I think that ended up becoming more houses. A little bit. So it's like this block of land from, this is 1998, right? This little cul-de-sac isn't even developed yet. Or that neighborhood isn't developed yet, and then 20 years later, a bunch of houses. It's hard looking at the ones, that one didn't even show up, when they're black and white. So what kind of analysis can you do with just those two aerial photos? Like probably the most popular remote sensing application out there. Say it louder.
Population.
You can do population growth, yep. What happens with population growth?
You get more like residential.
More residential, so you can see how the land use changes. That you'll see LULC a lot in the future, land use, land change. So that's one of the most popular applications of satellite photos. Cool. Check your local, state, or county government websites to see if a particular or a similar kind of data view has been set up for your area. Oh my goodness. We have Oliver. I definitely spelled that wrong. So we have Oliver. And Oliver has, so it looks a little different, right? It's different setup. All your map layers are over here at the top right corner. And you can add in so many things. Let's add biomap, since I know that's in here. Biomap. Actually, you know what I just saw? 1990s black and white orthos. Perfect. Let's go to Fitchburg. Let's see how the university has grown. This could fail. Has the university grown? Oh, come on. Sometimes these systems are finicky. Where is the university? Yes, zoom to center point. All right, here we go. Here is your campus. Does it look the same? It does. Let's grab the 2019 ortho underneath there. Let's get rid of tax parcels and all of these so we can actually see. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit more. All right, 1990s. Today. Oh, really? Nothing's changed, huh? Oh, this parking lot? Watch this parking lot. So this is today. This is the 90s. Does that look like there's houses back there or something? Yeah, it looks like the university got rid of some houses back there. Right? All of these, and then this one became parking lot. Whoa. Right, yeah. Bought the houses right out from under them. Have any new buildings been built in the past 20 years? 30 years? The science building has been expanded. That's this one, right? Right, so in the 1990s, it looks like that. Oh, yeah, huh? Oh, there's a building there. Hold on. Yeah. So did they tear it down completely? Because that's very different. This one, it looks like they completely tore it down and rebuilt it, which makes sense. This building does look brand new. Also, you can tell that their geo-referencing might be slightly off. Things are kind of jumping around a little bit. Yeah. Or they just redid all these buildings. I don't think so. Yeah, it's jumping. You can actually see whatever's going on at the top of this building over here on the bottom left. They had the similar grooves, and I think that was probably pipes for something. Still there. Let's look at what's this on the corner? That's Hammond's? Let's see how Hammond's changed. Not too much. More reflective roof. Yep. That little tower in the front's new. Good catch. They redid like the sidewalks out front too. Totally different pattern. And the quad. New pattern on the quad. Yeah, like way different. It actually looks like those might have been like dirt or gravel paths or something of a similar color to grass. And now it's quite manicured.
And where the,
Yep. Even all these houses too. Those are all different. Nope, might just be the angle of the photo. But the parking is different, you're right. Yep. Cool. Yeah, does look much cleaner. Awesome. So we talked about GIS. That's funny. Didn't intentionally do that. Talked about points, lines, and polygons. We talked about, yep, points, lines, polygons. Talked about digitizing. talk about rasters. This is a grid of raster cells. So look at this raster grid, and then picture like some, I don't know, that image of the quad inside here, and how you have, actually, I wonder if I can zoom into that. Let's see how far I can zoom in. Maybe you can see the pixels. No, you still can't. All right, so you can,
Is that like, you know those things in the kids' photo books where they have the picture?
yes, it's just like that. So you can actually take any image on the internet. I'll look for that image. No, I want a cat. Picture of a cat. All right, let's do this one. That's awesome. And if you zoom in far enough, damn it, I just want the image. Zoom in. So your picture of the Earth, very similarly laid out like this. This is your grid of cells. You can see the squares. That's a raster image. Like any picture could be a raster image. That's also how you can use GIS to tell stripe patterns and differences on zebras, which they do. It's definitely a different use of a GIS, but it still works. Yeah. So that's how you can see what a raster looks like. Zoom wicked far in. You can do it on satellite imagery that you have on your own. Unfortunately, most of the GIS systems online do not let you do it. Cool, so those are the grids. The National Land Cover, yes, database is a great example of a raster data set. Figure 5.7, cool. We talked a little bit about land cover in the sources of spatial data, so this is all a raster data set. And instead of looking at just a satellite image, they've identified each pixel in that satellite image as different things. So blue is water, easy peasy, like starts off blue, it's blue. And they actually do that based on the spectral signature, which is pretty cool. So water is highly reflective, and they can measure that and then identify it as water. Pinks and reds are either developed space or barren land, nothing there. And you can see those areas pretty easily. That was all based on identifying a satellite photo. That's just a different type of raster data. Similarly, green is vegetation, etc. You can view that online if you want. The link is in the chapter. It also goes into non-spatial data, which you can see in a attribute table. You'll get used to those in this week's lab, I hope. You can join attribute tables together. So if you have a common identifier, which I'm assuming in this one is state name, you can take these two tables, merge them into one table, or join them into one table. It's not a merge, it's join. Merge does something else. Cool. So it goes into the different softwares. We talked about that a little bit. ArcMap, ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Pro, which is the newest version, ArcGIS Online. All of it's built on Python. Have you heard of Python before? No? Okay, so it's a computer programming language like, have you heard of Java? Yes, C++. Python is another one. We also use R to do spatial analysis. Oh, we didn't realize Python's named after Monty Python. That's funny. That's new. I learned something today. So you can write Python scripts outside of ArcGIS, and then you could run it inside it. You can actually write it outside of it and run it outside of it. especially if you're working on something that's really processor intensive. It's faster to do it outside of ArcMap. Oof, talks about structured file geodatabases. Talks about, what else? Oh, open source graphs, QGIS. And then it wraps it up and gives you some Facebook and Twitter pages, and Instagram and YouTube and blogs if you want to learn more or keep up to date on recent news. So, going through the chapter together. What are your questions? You don't want to know about statistics. Those of you online, what are your questions? I'm excited to dive into lab this week. Getting kids to use like professional GIS software. So Chris, when you come to class on Thursday, sign into the lab computer. The software's already downloaded. You can get QGIS on your own computer. You can also get ArcMap on your own computer. The instructions for that are on Blackboard under the bibliography if you want to put ArcMap on your computer. It is only a trial version, so it will not last forever. It also is a large program that's very slow. So if you don't have a lot of space on the computer, don't even bother with it. Use lab computers. We also have the virtual machine, which I will put up details on how to access that on Blackboard. That's not the... Hey Google, when I get home, remind me to put instructions on Blackboard. Right, cool. So you will be able to, just like you log into the lab computer, you'll be able to log into the lab computer from home if you just can't make it for some reason. All right. Well,
All the way
oh, full time, I tried. Definitely take a quiz for chapter 5 if you haven't already. And I'll see you on Thursday. Feel free to read over the lab before you get here. That'll only help you. Right? You too.
See you on Thursday.
Yes.